Hello and welcome to the channel. I am Matt Smith. As always, thanks so much for tuning in. Before we get going, like and subscribe. You know the drill. Last game of the year, definitely going to help me out a ton. Appreciate you being here and curious to know what I thought about that ass kicking. 36-14, the final score today. Yet another Alamo Bowl massacre. That's 3 in a row for this program. Next time they get offered the Alamo Bowl, might just want to pass on it. Look, it was a great week for these guys. This program had not been to a bowl game in a non-COVID year since 2016. That's a very long time. And it has been since 2004 that this program last won a bowl game, and that streak will continue on past 20 years now. They were not ready to play today. They got out physical, which Coach Prime talked about ad nauseum heading into this matchup. They got outplayed, they got outcoached, and there isn't much good to talk about. There were 3 interceptions in this game, and I thought the defense came up with some big stops. Overall, gave the offense a chance to make this somewhat of a game, but they could not stop BYU's defensive line whatsoever. Shedeur was under constant pressure, like he has been for the most part the last 2 years. If you hear the pops and all this stuff going on, we got BYU and people all over the field here. But yeah, it was like the same story that we've been accustomed to in Colorado losses the last 2 seasons. Couldn't protect your quarterback. And defensively, I thought they did enough to at least make this a game. They just couldn't capitalize. And, you know, that's pretty much all she wrote. It was 20-0 at half. They did get sacked out of field goal range, and maybe that would be the only critique I had about Shedeur. Just a couple of times where you just can't take sacks that big. And that'll be something that they have to clean up at the next level. But outside of that, I didn't think any of this was his fault for the most part. Maybe a couple of times, yeah, but compared to the amount of pressure that he saw all night long, there's just not a whole lot that you can reasonably expect any person to do when they're running for their lives like that. And tonight it just was a beatdown from BYU. Quietly, BYU was very confident. The last couple of weeks heading into this one, I heard some things behind the scenes that they were very confident, and they played like it today. They played like the hungrier team. They wanted it more. Colorado did have more to play for. They have more guys that needed this game as good tape to show scouts, but they didn't show up and play like it, and that one's tough. Why is that? There really weren't many answers post-game, and I think it'll maybe take some time to sort out. Physicality is a big part of it, but you know, you got a lot of guys on this team that are looking to play pro ball, and unfortunately, they don't have this one really good game of tape that they can use. And you know, there were some good individual moments. Travis Hunter. Last time we'll ever get to see the senior class, including the Heisman winner, play. And he had a great game again. Even in Colorado's worst games, he's produced. He had, 4 catches, 106 yards, and a touchdown. And, you know, didn't get him involved enough. I thought Colorado's game plan was really bad. I don't know what they were doing the last month game plan-wise, especially offensively. Defensively, I thought it was okay. But they sit in man coverage and get annihilated in crossers way too often. And that's got to change. I don't know if they're going to play that much man moving forward without Travis out there. Maybe they do, but I think that needs to be investigated, because what BYU did was they essentially saw what Colorado's weaknesses were on tape, struggled at times against the quarterback run. They'd gotten a little bit better, but at times, so BYU used their second quarterback, a lot of that read option. They struggled with misdirection. You had a lot of misdirection in the running game. They struggle with crossers and drag routes, especially when receivers get corners 10, 15 yards down the field. Then, you know, you're one-on-one with a linebacker or a safety who's got to come up and make a play 10, 15 yards. And so they got some fundamental things to fix, but they went 9-4. So while today was terrible, they were beat flat out. It's hard to just analyze it in a vacuum. In a vacuum, it's bad, and they were unprepared, which maybe we can look at, hey, there was a lot of non-football stuff over the last month that maybe there was some distractions there, or maybe they were relying too much on, 2 and 12. But either way, I think there are some underlying things that I think moving forward they're going to have to address. They're going to certainly be, I imagine, heavier RPO moving forward, but it's tough to not want to look at the future right now and just stay in the moment, because this is the last go-around, and this group that helped put Colorado back on the map will be remembered forever. And sure, we'll remember this, but in the grand scheme of things, this isn't what you're going to remember. This team went 9-4 2 years after going 1-11, and they have reintroduced Colorado to the national spotlight for college football in a way that I didn't think was possible. So while we're disappointed with today's results, certainly, and to go out this way, to end this chapter this way, is tough to swallow, for sure. Not just for CU, but for the Sanders family and everybody who was a part of Jackson State and that crew coming over here, so at least to Boulder. So look, I think at the end of the day, it's been a remarkable turnaround. Unfortunately, I think at the biggest moments of the season, they came up just a day late and $1 short at times. So unfortunately, this is where it ends on a down note. I have yet to see a CU season end in somewhat of an uplifting way in a very long time. I don't think that this has much carryover because you lose a lot of the key contributors next year anyway. But the fact is that it's a sour taste to leave, to go out, and they got their asses kicked. They got destroyed special teams wise. The surprise onside, the punt return allowed for touchdown, the 2 50-plus yard field goals. Mata missed again, and moving forward, there's a lot of things that they need to address, and it's going to be a totally different structure. But today was really unfortunate. I didn't foresee this. I thought to myself heading into this one, well, at least they're not going to get killed. At least they don't get blown out. Wishful thinking, I guess. They've been outscored by 84. Off the top of my head, that's some quick math, in 3 Alamo Bowls since 2016. There's no common thread. It's just this building is a house of horrors. It is a house of horrors for the University of Colorado football program. And look, they've got to fix their running game moving forward. Back-to-back years, they finish as the worst rushing team in the country. There was never a time where, in a competitive game, it was mostly in games that were under control already, that the running game really helped them over the hill or helped them win a big one, I thought. There were some impressive rushing performances this year, and when they eclipsed 100 yards as a team, they were 5-0, but you're going to do things vastly differently next year, and I think when it comes to that, even though you've got screen game that's an extension of your running game, they've got to be much more balanced. And didn't have a chance to ask Coach Prime about his priorities, because last year in Salt Lake City, I asked him about what his priorities were for the offseason, and he said running the ball is 1A and stopping the run is 1B. And I don't know in which order. Well, they accomplished the stopping the run this year for the most part. They got killed a couple of times, but just a massive leap from last year. The running the football, they haven't really figured out still. They did a few things to figure it out, but now they're going to change a lot. And there's probably going to have to be some tough discussions had. Coach Prime talked about how, coaching staff's not going to stay the same because you'll have elevations, and, maybe he has it in his mind of, some guys that are that he'd like to try and maybe find a different fit for, or, they're still learning as they're going. And this is another big learning moment, teaching moment that, hey, against the really good teams, we didn't really have it this year. They had some good wins, but against the best teams they faced this year, Kansas State I would put in that conversation, BYU certainly in that conversation, and the Nebraska team they faced at the beginning of the year was not the team that finished the year. So another level to go and another step to go, and either way though, it's still hard to be too upset here, for me at least, because of what's happened and the significance of what this meant. Again, I guess it's maybe a double standard for me to say now that I thought they had a lot more to play for, and then, come away from this game feeling like, okay, well, they got their asses kicked, but what does it really matter? I know it matters to them in the locker room, and it would have been a great statement to make, and it feels like they just keep getting to these points and just can't get over the top in some of the big moments. But to even be able to be at those big moments and have something to play for is accomplishment in and of itself, certainly. I'm just kind of watching this BYU team celebrate, and at the end of the year, you want to have that feeling, even if it's not the college football playoff. You want to have the feeling that you're going to walk away winning your last game. It's a special one, and certainly a lot of these guys, and some of them probably won't ever play football again, organized football. Maybe you'll have a couple that certainly will go on to the NFL. I just walked past Charlie Offerdahl and give him a pat on the back. That young man has been through the ringer, and just being here alone this week for guys like him and Ben Finiseth, and I'm looking over there, and there's Shiloh signing autographs for fans. He is the only player out here right now. There's a couple others, but that says a lot about who he is, certainly. And he did that after the Oklahoma State game, went into the stadium and shook hands with the fans, and I'm gonna miss those guys. They are good people, the Sanders family, and they did a lot for Boulder, certainly. And there were a couple moments in the press conference where some media members thanking them, which is just not the time for. But I think everybody who's been around the program would like to have that opportunity to thank them for their contribution to this program, to our community, to our city. As somebody who's lived in Boulder for 25 years almost now, maybe more, about 25 years, they have drastically turned things around. And this image I'm watching here of Shiloh, signing autographs for fans, you would have never dreamed of stuff like that a couple of years ago. So yeah, you're disappointed, and yeah, they've created expectation that they're going to win, so you best uphold that standard. You do have to recognize what they have done, what they mean, and who they are, right? Because they're good people. They're very good people, and they care. And it's certainly not the way they wanted it. And again, I think there's a couple of things that maybe from a more nuts and bolts perspective, maybe more of a football logistics, X's and O's, that we can talk about. I don't believe now is the right time for that. I would say that all things considered here, you have a team that will be remembered, and that's special, right? And for good reasons. We'll remember they got their asses kicked in the Alamo Bowl, but that won't be the overwhelming takeaway from the last 2 years. Shedeur spoke after the game, so did Cam. Both those guys still in the moment, specifically Shedeur, almost not worth, you'd love to have some of these reflective conversations, but it's really hard in the moment, especially with these guys. And, for a competitor like he is, I asked him, what wasn't working, what went wrong offensively. He's like, the whole thing, everything. They played terrible. He was under fire. So I think there were a couple of moments where, he probably could have been a little bit better, but none of this was his fault. The line, they rotated right tackle. I believe it was Tyler Brown for the first half, and Resnick got some time in the second half. And, Philip Houston was a good stopgap, and, they were probably pretty thin at tackle all year long. The fact that they made it through the season the way they did without having to do any major, well, I say that, and they did have to start a walk-on true freshman center. So as far as like major reconstruction, Seton made it the whole year and had a hell of a season. He'll be a freshman All-American. I do, now that I am looking over here at some of the CU staff getting together, I do have one other thing on the CU side of things to mention, but we go through everybody. I thought Levante Bentley played his ass off tonight, played really hard. You definitely noticed no Nakai Hill-Green, but as is the portal, right? They're probably lucky that was their only major contributor that they were without from the regular season. I did see Keaton Wade in a boot. Preston Hodge did not play again. It'll be interesting to see what happens following the JUCO ruling with Diego Pavia, Vanderbilt's quarterback. essentially nullifying your years in junior college as counting against eligibility. It will be interesting to see if they do in fact apply for another year for a guy like Preston Hodge, and maybe even a guy like Chidozie Nwankwo. I think he is potentially even in that qualification arena. I don't know if they will, because I do believe he's committed to playing the Hula Bowl, but now begins the process of getting a lot of these guys to pro days and to all-star games and combines and agents, and that whole next step of making it to the professional level. And there's a lot that has to go into that simultaneously with building this program again, because you're going to have to. Your foundation the last 2 years were around Shedeur and Travis, and they know that, and that's why it's been great to have Caden Salter here this week and Juju Lewis, as well as some of these other younger recruits who were able to be sponges and learn from guys like Shedeur and guys like Travis, and at least see the standard that was set by a Cameron Stillman Craig and by a Shiloh, and they're still out there signing autographs. He's good people, man. I don't know what else to say. They all are on this team. There's a lot of great dudes. Gonna miss getting a chance to talk to, because they're good people and high IQ, high character. There were a lot of people today that were kind of ragging on Coach Prime for keeping Shedeur and Travis in the game as late as he did, but Shedeur said, look, we started, so we're gonna finish, which, I mean, that I expected as much. I think we were all a little bit nervous for Shedeur because he was just getting teed off on. That's got to change next year. I mean, they got to. I think the RPO and running the ball would certainly help, but how committed are they to that and playing that way? And Pat Shurmur's never really ran a offense like that. Is that what you want to do? I mean, to a degree he has, but he's learned on the fly, and so has Robert Livingston. And in the first year as full-time college coordinators for both of them, I think overall they both did a very, very solid job. And moving forward, they're going to have to do things as a program a little bit differently, because you're going to be doing it around different guys, right? You're going to be doing it around a different core, a different foundation. So I think there will have to be an evaluation period. And I'm sure Coach Prime will, about, okay, is this how we want to move forward with everything? And they're already hard at work at assembling what next year and the year after's version looks like. I am sitting here now and struck by the memory that I had doing this exact same thing in 2016 of talking about the Buffs getting their asses kicked in a special season. So it's a familiar feeling for me. I did not think I was going to have that one again this year, but here we are nonetheless. The CU side, the one thing I want to bring up from that, it was early on that we knew, or at least thought, this could be a rough one. They did bring Ralphie down here. She's a sweetheart, okay? She's a sweetheart. If they continue to use her and continue to try and develop her, the tradition of running with Ralphie is dead. That's true. That's true. It's like an honorary thing. And I know that there are some specific reasons why they don't like to talk about it, but it needs to be discussed, because it's a problem, and it's one of college football's greatest traditions. And that was embarrassing today if you're a CU fan. I mean, it was and look, it's hard for me to want to get all over it. She, like I said, she's a sweetheart. And I think she would be perfectly fine being in a pasture the rest of her life. I do. Eating all day, hanging out with her buddies, and this though, not for her. It's not for her. And I was even surprised they dragged her down here to do this. I did hear today that she didn't even want to practice on Wednesday because she was scared of the blue turf. Look, this is a very foreign environment for an animal like that, and you do have to find the right candidate. And I know that there are some sensitivities around that specifically, and some advocacy groups that are not happy that they continue to use a live mascot, but it is what it is. You've just got to make it so that it's not a discussion topic. I mean, look, the truth is Ralphie ran her ass off last time, and they still got killed in 2016. So I don't think it matters, but it was the way she just, I was like, oh gosh, anyway, so 36-14, another debilitating Alamo Bowl loss, and the closing of a wonderful chapter in Colorado football history. So unlike some of these guys who are in it and it's too fresh and it's too raw right now. For us, it's not. For us, we can see the bigger picture, and just a tremendous 2 years full of so many memorable moments, and a lot to be grateful for too, because this program has an entirely different trajectory. That being said, there are some things that they're going to have to clean up, and they know that, and as does everyone around the country. And certainly they're in a much better position than a lot of these other programs are, who are dealing with 30 guys in the portal. And it does seem like this summer, or at least this offseason, it does seem like this offseason that money has become kind of the be-all, end-all in the portal. So we did hear Coach Prime talk about that a little bit earlier this week, how, look, they have had, it has definitely changed from the way it was last year, talking about, some of these schools with big bankrolls being able to pull a lot of guys out of the portal, and Colorado doesn't have those resources, and now they don't have Travis and Shedeur to recruit with, so now you got to recruit guys to be the next Travis and Shedeur. And we'll see how it goes. It's been going well so far, and we'll see what it looks like moving forward. I mean, this is back to work for them. There's, that's the thing about college football, especially coaching staff, recruiting. No rest for the wicked here. No rest for the wicked here. Certainly not for these guys, even though I imagine some of these guys get some time off, leave Boulder. But when they come back, they'll be back for pro days and all that stuff. And I don't know what they're going to do for the draft either. Coach Prime did mention to Rich Eisen on his show that they are not going to Green Bay, which is great. Which is great. I did not want to have to go to Green Bay. So it sounds like maybe they might do something in Boulder. I don't know, but I think it's a great idea to do your own thing, marketing, just the whole nine is brilliant. So for the final time this year, and there'll be plenty to get to and plenty to dissect, and certainly with some more time removed, I will definitely have some more thoughts for you. But for now, another Alamo Bowl ass kicking. And I, having been here since Monday, cannot wait to leave San Antonio. I hope you all had a happy holiday, and I'm genuinely wishing everybody just a happy and a healthy new year, and we'll talk soon.